In this video, I'm going to be reviewing two films starring both Sophia Loren and Marcello Mastroanni, and they were also both directed by Vittorio De Sica, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, and Married Italian Style. Vittorio De Sica has always been known as one of the greatest filmmakers in Italy, particularly his Neorealist films like Bicycle Thieves and Umberto D, which are two of my favorite films, really. And then he started to make some comedies in the 1960s, and that's what I'm going to be looking at today, which are both really, really good films with Sophia Loren and Marcello Mastroanni. He had already worked with Sophia Loren in Two Women, which is a great film from 1960, which Sophia Loren won an Academy Award for, which is an extremely dramatic film about the war. And, you know, here we are doing a complete 180 and working on a comedy, So this was, I imagine, a bit of a risk to jump into that, but looking at first, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. These are three different stories, and Sophia Loren plays three different characters, and oh my god, the performances from her and Mastroanni are just incredible. I mean, they were a phenomenal acting duo. They really played off each other. You can sense the joy in just being there and working off one another and playing these scenes out. I sense a real trust between them. They just look like they're willing to go anywhere with each other on an emotional level, and that's the best. As an actor myself, those are the best kind of acting partners you want, where you trust them completely and you'll allow the moment to go wherever it goes. And they've worked with each other so many times, and this is the beginning of that relationship. And you see in Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, again, three different stories. The first one is, they're this couple, well, she's in trouble with the law and she has to go to jail, but the rules are if she was pregnant that that they won't arrest her. So they keep having baby after baby after baby, so she won't go to jail. And the irony is that she got more beautiful, stronger, she became like a force of nature, and Mastroanni becomes the opposite. He's more and more sleep deprived. His mother he goes to his mother just to get some sleep, and he can't get any sleep because, there's people making noises or in the next building, and it's just absolutely hilarious. And it's absurd to think that they're having 7 kids in order for her to not go to jail. And then finally, he can't produce anymore. The doctor says he needs rest. And it's funny how she calls him weak. He sort of feels defeated. So she has to go to jail. And I love how they get her out. They collect money in order to get her to be released. So I thought it's such, these three stories, they're not necessarily connected other than the fact that they are playing couples in each one, but they play three very, very different parts. The second one, she's like a bourgeois, wealthy woman who's cheating on her husband, and she's with Marcello Mastroanni on a car ride, and he's a writer, and they're having an affair, and she's talking about, just a really, actually, I think the middle one may be my favorite one. She's talking about how she hates the emptiness of her life and the money, and she wants, experiences, and there's no feelings to anything. And sure enough, they get into this crash where she's so worried about the car, forget about his safety or her safety. He almost puts her jacket down because there's a bit of a fire. She goes, "Don't touch that's a fur coat. Use your coat." So here she is, the hypocrisy again. He's, De Sica's, he's criticizing those that bourgeois way of think, this hypocrisy where they talk about wanting, at least in her case, talks about wanting experience and that money is empty. But then, of course, when push comes to shove, what does she care about? Her possessions. And I love the last shot of Mastroanni just walking away from it all, laughing, with, he's so amused by, I suppose because he's a writer, he's able to look at it objectively, and, maybe it's something that he's going to write about. But even his character is very, very different, very serious, very straight-laced, very attentive. like he's like the straight man part, whereas in the first one, he's so funny, particularly when you see him so worn out at his mother's house, at the lack of sleep, and how she's trying to help him and protect him and get him rest, and like Italian mother. It's just hilarious. And then we see the third one. Now we're talking about like Catholic guilt. She's a prostitute, Sophia Loren, and Mastroanni is one of her ongoing clients, and the whole time all he's trying to do is sleep with her, and he can't because there's so many distractions. The first, the main distraction is the neighbor next door, a young man who's about to become a priest, and he's falling in love with Sophia Loren. And he doesn't want to become a priest anymore, and he's living with his grandparents, and they're blaming her. She's a prostitute, and she's they're ruining our lives, and how can you do this to her? He wants to become a priest, and she at first gets mad at the grandmother, but she takes this very seriously when she sees how upset the grandmother's becoming, because she has morals and she ultimately wants to help. So she gives up working for a week and her earnings and sex in order to convince the son to go back into the priesthood and to do what he's meant to do, at least from what his grandparents were saying and from what she's seeing. So it makes you wonder whether or not this priest really wants to do that, because they talk early on when she's talking to him about, oh, I heard priests can marry now, that might happen, and he goes, no, I don't think so. And sure enough, he goes into this training to become a priest, but is he doing that under peer pressure, under guilt, from the pressure from both Sophia Loren and the grandparents? It's hard to say. So I think he's criticizing, not only he's talking about one's guilt, Catholic guilt, and morals, but and perhaps the young man goes over his own guilt as well, because he's already gone that far. So what is he saying there, De Sica? Is he criticizing the church, or is it just meant to be humorous? I think it's really up to the audience. But that's a hilarious segment as well, because all Mastroianni wants to do is sleep with her, and she, when she, of course, the famous strip scene at the last scene of the film, and then she can't because she's vowed an oath. She promised the grandmother, even though he left, that no, I have to. I told her I wouldn't do anything for a week, and it doesn't even matter because at this point, he left, right? But again, it's the guilt. This was a big hit, and it's surprising that De Sica, who was this neorealist director, was so embraced in these two movies. I mean, worldwide, these were major hits, and he was a funny guy, clearly, and he was, just from what Mastroianni was, how he described him, he was a very funny guy, and he obviously had the temperament and the sense of humor for this. Married Italian Style, that is a more interesting film to me. I actually acted in the play, the play version many years ago. Of course, it's adapted from the play. This is the following year, 1964. Again, we have Mastroianni and Sophia Loren, and I think this is really about. Is about the complexities of love and relationships, that we know someone a certain way and then we see a different side of them, and we may not like that side, and how we work to compromise, and how we work to find each other. And that's really it comes full force in this film, because this is more dramatic and comedic, where over this 20-year period of Mastroianni meeting Sophia Loren when she's 17, as they're getting bombed, during the war, and she's a prostitute, and he's clearly embarrassed by this. He's a wealthy businessman, and he's they're about to go out in one scene, and he doesn't like what she's wearing. He's thinking, what are people gonna think, because she's wearing something revealing, and she goes along with it to because he's doing a lot for her, is paying her bills. And then she starts to demand more, and he gives her a little bit more. He gets her a place, he moves her into his house. But, he doesn't, people who were supposed to move into this house that he owns, he makes up a story about why Sophia Loren is there. So he doesn't say, oh, this is my wife now, or my soon-to-be wife or girlfriend. So for years, he was always traveling as well. So for years, he was keeping her on a leash, and it takes a toll, obviously, on the relationship, but it's done in such a funny way. And again, the performances, wow. I mean, Sophia Loren is so committed to everything she does, so funny, so intense, so full of life. She never plays for laughs, neither does Mastroianni, because really the stories are really heightened and broad and funny as it is, that the actors really just have to really go at it, really commit to it, really respond, really listen, and that's what they do. And I think that's what the best comedic actors do. Jack Lemmon is known from saying that comedy is, you approach it the same way as drama or anything else. You just really commit to the moment, to the scene. And they do that wonderfully, because, you know, you feel that she's being hurt by Mastroianni, and you feel that Mastroianni is being distant. You know, I mean, it's very humorous in the opening scene because she's so sick, and, you know, as a way to set up Mastroianni to get married, because they send the priest over, and it's like, oh, my dying wish, and to get married, and so he's engaged to someone else, so he says yes, you know, I do, and then she snaps out of it, and she's not sick at all. It was a way to marry him, because as we find out, she has 3 sons, and he never knew about it. You know, she was leaving them over the years with relatives, and other people were taking care of them, and sure enough, she wants his name to live on with them. She doesn't like where she comes from. You know, you don't know much about her childhood, but she comes from poverty. I mean, she was a prostitute. She was, during the war, she was alone. She was bombed out of where she was living. She did whatever she had to do to survive, but she wants them to come from something better. And obviously, because he's a successful man, his name is something that she felt would give them a better future. And for him, you know, and she was taking care of them with the money that he was giving her over the years, as he kept this distant relationship. So we see, you know, she was using him to an extent, but I think truly they love each other, even through all the friction and all the his distance and his using her. There's this beautiful scene where they're getting into this big fight, but they ultimately embrace. And I think really Mastroianni, he's engaged to another woman, but again, I think it's getting over the fact that she was a prostitute. I think that humiliated him, that embarrassed him. It made him feel ashamed of himself, of her. And I think in the end, he really accepts her. It actually reminds me of almost like A Woman Under the Influence with Cassavetes and film with Peter Falk and Jenna Rollins, this sense of accepting someone for who they are, and a relationship cannot blossom and evolve until one really does. And, you know, when he finds out about the sons, he finds out that one of the sons is his, and she's very smart. You know, she says that none of them are his, and then she says that one of them is his, and he sees that when you know, it's funny again, it's funny, and you know, even drama can be funny sometimes, and he's trying to figure out which one could be his. He's going through where he was over the years to see when he could have been sleeping with her, and trying to figure out how old the kids are to guess which one might be his. He talks to each of them, and, you know, she says who it is, and then right away he starts to think of only helping that one son. But she says, no, the reason I don't want to tell you definitively is because I want you to help all of them. They're all part of me. And if we're in love, if you love me, if you truly love me, then the 3 of them, we all come together, you know. And they didn't really even know who she was over the years, because she was coming and going. You know, some of them she hadn't seen for a long time, but she would, you know, go to where they hung out to watch them. You know, it's quite sad that she just didn't have the means to take care of them, but now she's putting her foot down and making Mastroianni make a choice. Do you love me or do you not? And we all need each other. So, you know, you could look at that as, you know, that she let him off the hook too much of all the things that he's doing, but at the same time, you know, we do that in life. We, both men and women, we're in relationships and we hurt each other. We lie to each other. We keep distance sometimes, hate each other one day, love each other the next. And I think in this comedy, in this kind of broad very heightened scenario of the 3 children and him not knowing about it, it really brings us into the complexities of love and marriage. Hence the title, Marriage Italian Style. But a wonderful film. Ultimately, I think Mastroanni realizes the errors of his ways over the years and all that he's done wrong and all that he can make right now, to not just think about himself or his image or his pride or that she was a prostitute, but to just forget all the bullshit and see who these people are and what they need, not what you need, what they need. And so she forces him to make that choice. So it's optimistic in the end in terms of how Loren reacts. Of course, that beautiful shot of her getting emotional at the end. She talks about, he criticizes her, oh, you never cry even when you're upset. And she goes, well, you only cry when you're happy, and it's tears of joy. So it's a beautiful ending. So really, these films are incredible for the comedy, for the drama, for the seamless way in which the comedy and drama flows to say a lot about people, about the complexities of people. And, in yesterday, today, and tomorrow, we see Loren just transform herself from part to part. And he's touching on many themes, and these are relevant films, and they really hold up because of how universal they are. So I highly recommend them. If you have Canopy, both of these movies you can watch on Canopy for free. So I highly recommend them. You got great performances, you got great comedy, and it works on many levels for its comedy, for its drama, and for what it's saying about life, bringing you into life. So wonderful films, wonderful performances by a master filmmaker, Vittorio De Sica. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Thank you again for watching. I want to thank all my Patreon members. If anyone's interested, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below. Thank you so much. If this is your first time on my channel, please consider subscribing by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the Movies logo that you will see floating above my head to your top left. Click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release a new video or when I go live. Thanks so much, folks. I'll see you soon.